You are listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxshall, in which I chronicle my life and attempts to become a professional writer by, doing some writing daily, hopefully. Hello, it is Monday the 27th of May, and welcome to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer. And I'm actually going to talk about some writing today. This isn't, unlike yesterday, a 6-minute excuse for not doing any. This is part of the live stream. So it was actually the work I was doing on the live stream that inspired me to talk a little bit about continuity. So I'm just reading through chapter 27, and in chapter 27 it's largely about a character called Daniel Huxley, who is being manipulated to try and give some information, and the manipulator has used pain, violence, threat of violence, and the bully, the torturer, I possibly would call him a torturer actually, is a guy called Mr. Clayton, and he's a bit of a what I think of in my head, it probably looks like EDL kind of thug, bald, a couple of tattoos, and enjoys inflicting pain for no good reason. So, but I've got an interesting dynamic here because I've also written. This is the second time the characters have appeared. So Mr. Clayton is the thug, and the guy who's watching everything going on the video is called Sayers, Sayers, and he has got a first name, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. And the dynamic between Sayers and Clayton, it feels like it's changed between the chapter I'm editing now and the first time they appeared. So I kind of got the impression from the first one that Clayton very much felt like he was in charge and could do what he liked. But in this, Sayers very much says, actually, no, what you're doing, you've gone too far, it's not going to work, he's just going to dig his heels in now. And I'm going to get the information out of him, and I'm not going to use your stupid methods. And it works in the context of this chapter, but I'm pretty certain if I go back and look at the other chapter the characters have appeared in, it won't feel right. And obviously, I've got to decide which of the two is correct. Is Clayton the bully, the more superior character, or is it Mr. Sayers? And I think the context of the chapter I'm editing now works for the bigger picture of the story. So what I need to do is go back to the earlier chapter and look at the interactions between Sayers and Clayton, and certainly put them on a more equal footing. I think Clayton definitely feels like he's in charge in the first chapter, and here, if the dynamic was the same, he would challenge Sayers' behaviour towards him. And actually we see from this chapter that Sayers has got high clearance, he's allowed into areas of the establishment that Clayton isn't allowed into. So clearly the dynamic that I've got in this chapter is the correct one. But it's the first time I've spotted something that needs... actually, that's not true. It's the first time I've spotted something that I feel it isn't right in terms of continuity. It isn't the first time I've been going through this and done some rewrites. There's been a couple of times where I felt characters' emotional responses have been off to the situation they put them in. So, for example, when Oakley decides to take Marianne out and shoot them, they deal with it very, very well. And actually, when rereading it for this edit, I thought, no, actually, I think Marianne would... If they believed they were going to die, I think their reaction would be much more visceral and emotional. Even when they found out that actually I had to say that because the house is being monitored. And the second thing that I just had to change slightly was when Ursula kills one of the Woods. The character called Woods kills one of the Woodsies, as it were. She's a little old lady. She looks like she's in her 90s. She's actually 300 odd, so she's got a lot of life experience. But I can't imagine there's been a situation before where she's had to kill someone. So actually, I felt her just brushing it aside and getting on with things wasn't quite true to life. And so I have her initially shocked. I think her recovery is quite quick, and I think she kind of realises that she's quite stoic, and that she realises what she did was the right thing to do and it had to happen. But I think it took her a little. It didn't take her long to realise that and to kind of normalise and realise that's the thing I had to do. But for her to just, oh yes, I've killed him, that's not a problem, right, what's happening now, didn't feel right. So those are the two things I've majorly had to rewrite, and absolutely the continuity of the relationship between Mr. Clayton and Mr. Sayers is going to need a bit of work here. So for those of you who watch my live stream, it will be, I don't know if I'll do it today, actually. I will edit chapter 27, do another screen edit of chapter 27. I might even do the paper edit of chapter 27. I don't know. So again, to explain that to people, I do 2 edit sweeps. First one entirely on the screen, where I pick up all the broad errors, and then I actually think I find more on paper. So once I've got rid of the obvious things I don't like from the screen copy of the draft, I then print it out and work through it line by line with a pen and edit it that way. And I might do both of chapter 27 today, but I'm not going to go back and revisit the previous chapter today, but that is going to have to be the next thing I do before I move on to chapter 28. Anyway, that's it for the podcast. Brief talk about how important, well, it's not an important, I'll start again. It's not a talk about how important continuity is, although it is obviously important. If you have something that contradicts itself within the text, that feels a bit funny. There's been a couple of times within Empress of the Trees where I've actually noticed things that didn't quite add up, but that's the beauty of the edit at this level. And most of them I've just added a sentence, or in some cases just deleted a sentence to make the continuity add up. But it's interesting how some people, like Tani, my friend who writes the Bow Street Society books, she tracks a lot of her things, whereas at the moment it's all in my head. But then I'm not writing a detailed complex murder mystery, and I'm also not writing a detailed ongoing series where the characters' interactions could come back and haunt them down the line. So my story is not as complex as hers, so I see why she plans hers a lot more than I do, but even so. So yeah, brief chat about continuity. That's me done for today. It's a bank holiday today in the UK. I didn't even realise that until I went into Milton Keynes and there were a ton of people about. I mean, what right have people have got to be out of their houses, even on a bank holiday? They should stay in their houses and leave the shops empty for me to walk around. That's the polite thing to do. I'd just like to thank the denizens of Milton Keynes sarcastically for not having done that. Anyway, I'll shut up now. If this is the live stream, I'll be continuing, but as for those of you listening on the podcast, that's me done for the day, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye bye. You have been listening to The Diary of a Wannabe Writer, presented by Richard A. Boxall. Thank you for tuning in to my random ramblings, and if you'd like to know more about me or my projects, visit my link tree at linktr.ee/Richard Wright, capital R, capital W. Thank you for listening.